There is no unfinished business at this time. We will move to new business, which is a discussion of the no-kill Russellville plan relating to animal control. And Mr. Irwin, did you want to introduce that or say anything in that regard?
Yes, sir. We have some members of No Kill Russellville here who are going to give us a brief presentation on what no kill is and just give us some information about it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Denise Knight. Most of you know me. I've covered the city of Baldwin for a few years. I am also vice president on the board of No Kill Russellville. Megan Heinzman is our president. She's passing out some information to y'all. And we also have with us today the rest of our board. Kathy Soto is our secretary. Melissa Sherman is our communications director. And Jeff Powell back here is our treasurer. We wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about some implementation of life-saving measures for companion animals in Russellville. I'm still a pretty young person, but I've spent my adult life here in Russellville, and I've opted to stay here when I could have left. Russellville boasts diversity, a rapidly growing four-year university, and a vibrant tourism economy. We have been working hard to brand ourselves as a progressive community that is open for business and poised for growth. Russellville residents are compassionate and generous. We want to be a model in our region. We want to be contemporary with significant changes sweeping our nation and our region relative to the care and sheltering of our companion animals. We want a shelter that reflects our values and not thwarts them. Here in our state, West Memphis, Arkansas, their animal shelter has an annual stray pet intake of 1,200 dogs and cats. They achieve a 91% save rate. There's some other regional shelters listed here on the slides that are achieving 80% to 90% save rates for the intake of their animals. These are municipal shelters. In closer to home in Rogers, we have an 83% save rate for their animals. Fayetteville shelter has a 96% save rate for dogs and 81% for their cat intake. Just down the road in Clarksville, Needy Paws Animal Shelter, which contracts with the cities of Clarksville and Lamar for their animal services needs, saved 86% of the 823 animals they took in last year. And we're going to take a look at Russellville's numbers as well. If you look at Russellville, I have the numbers up here for Russellville and Needy Paws. Some of the information for dogs they had one that escaped and a few that died at the shelter at Clarksville. I didn't have numbers for those in Russellville, so those are missing. You'll see in Russellville's shelter intake, these are for 2013. If you'd like to take them at face value, an intake of 727 dogs with 330 adoptions and 41 returned to owners is only a 50% save rate or live outcome. You'll notice possibly that those numbers don't add up. Although the shelter mentioned an intake of 727 dogs, only 612 dogs are accounted for with the numbers from adoption, euthanasia, and return to owners. That leaves 115 dogs, or roughly 16%, unaccounted for. The records are frustrating as well in regards to cats. These records provided indicate an intake of 437 cats. Adoptions were 169. That's only 38% of the intake has a live outcome. Euthanasia was 334, or 76%. Those numbers add up to more than 100%. Taken together, shelter records indicate 169 adoptions plus 334 euthanized is 503 cats, which is 66 more cats than indicated in shelter records. I shot Mike Vernon an email to ask him about the discrepancy. He said that the dogs' discrepancies were from carryover into 2014, fosters, and dogs transferred to rescues. The cat numbers were off due to kittens born at the shelter. Those animals are seemingly not accounted for in the shelter's current record-keeping system. We believe that absolutely one of the first steps that must be taken is accurate record-keeping and identification of all animals that come in and out of the shelter. Each animal should be assigned a name or number, and each animal's path through the shelter and outcome should be easily documented and identifiable. Here's a couple examples of Clarksville's ID system. They have a picture of each dog, a name, an ID number, and some identifying information and intake information as well. These are easily visible. If you look, these are their ID cards lined up for all the kennels that they have outside. And so you can see all the little ID cards lined up here. Their indoor kennels have the ID cards directly next to the kennel with a picture of the dog or dogs in the kennel right there next to it so you can ID it. As far as I'm aware, there's no current ID system or numbering system currently in place at the Russellville shelter. But besides the record keeping, which I believe is important, on a larger scale, what No Kill Russellville is really about is advocacy for implementation of a no-kill policy for the Russellville Animal Shelter. A recent Associated Press poll reported that 3 out of every 4 citizens think it should be illegal to kill animals unless they are suffering or dangerous. And that is exactly what no-kill is about. It is the idea that healthy and treatable animals should be saved. Opponents will have you believe that sick animals will suffer and healthy animals will languish in the shelter for months under a no-kill philosophy. That is not the case. No-kill advocates believe there are instances where true humane euthanization is appropriate. In the cases of severe illness or injury or true aggression, those are the cases that we believe that is an appropriate outcome for those animals. We don't believe in killing for convenience. Citizens of Russellville are kind, caring, compassionate, and generous. They deserve an animal shelter that reflects their values. We can save healthy and treatable animals, oftentimes thought to be roughly 90% or more of animals entering our shelter, with a proven, documented life-saving plan to bring our animal shelter up to the performance of our neighbor cities. Not only will implementing a no-kill policy be possible within the shelter's current budget, but there are grants available only for no-kill shelters. Implementing a progressive, compassionate program is also typically associated with an increase in community involvement and donations. A no-kill city ordinance is absolutely necessary to unleash a massive force of public compassion that drives adoptions, volunteer participation, donations, and a civic relief that the enlightened path has been taken. We must take advantage of all resources available to save lives, including increased availability of adoptions and ability to utilize local resources. No Kill Russellville has been working with PetSmart to allow our group to host adoption events at that store. It's just one of the things we're doing to try to expand some adoption availability. But what do we want from you? That's the big question. The first step toward life-saving success is a decision and a commitment to reject kill-oriented ways of doing business. Accountability requires clear definitions, a life-saving plan, and protocols oriented toward preserving life. Each and every animal is an individual, and each deserves individual consideration. Shelter leadership needs to get the community excited to energize people for the task at hand. The community is at the heart of every life-saving effort. They volunteer, they donate, they rescue, they foster, they socialize animals, and they assist with adoptions. After the Nevada Humane Society embraced their life-saving effort, the number of volunteers went from 12 to nearly 8,000, while the number of foster homes increased from roughly a handful to roughly 2,500. By working with people, implementing life-saving programs, and treating each life as precious, a shelter can transform itself. There are a number of programs that are absolutely necessary for such an endeavor to succeed. Some of those mandatory services include working with rescue groups. The shelter director must work to assist the rescue effort and make volunteers feel welcome at the shelter, make the public feel welcome, and work to make their work easier. The shelter must be visited by the public as the adoption center with traffic flow similar to a retail store. Kind of the retail business model is very key to life-saving efforts. Rescue groups are at the heart and soul of a successful life-saving effort. Foster care. Volunteer foster care is a low-cost and often no-cost way of increasing shelter capacity and caring for sick and injured animals, thus saving more lives. This is some of the noblest volunteer work in the community. Volunteer programs. Volunteers are a dedicated army of compassion and the backbone of a successful life-saving effort. They walk dogs, they socialize cats, they assist the potential adopters, and more. Volunteers make the difference between success and failure, and for the animals, life and death. As it is done in hospitals, volunteers will be required to sign liability waivers to protect against litigation by anyone participating in shelter volunteer work. A prescribed observation period could be observed for every animal entering the shelter so as to determine behavior patterns accurately before they come into direct contact with any volunteer. Strict safety protocols will be followed at all times, and volunteers must pass a carefully planned training program. Comprehensive adoption programs, more retail exposure, imaginative marketing, using all forms of social media, more convenient access for the public, off-site venues, and incentives are all used together, not piecemeal, to reinvigorate adoptions at the shelter. The shelter cannot sit and wait for adoptions to appear by themselves. Pet retention is using imaginative ways to work with people to keep companion animals and their owners together. Medical and behavior programs, shelters must keep animals healthy and happy. Thorough vaccination, handling, cleaning, socialization, and care policies to prevent illness. Public relations and community involvement. Marketing, public relations, which includes educational programs in schools, partnering with community groups increases adoptions. Volunteers and donations. A strong partnership with the local media is key to ensuring a continued focus on saving lives. High volume spay and neuter. More than 90% of shelter pets are unaltered because of the cost barrier. By funding affordable procedures, shelter intake is reduced significantly. Trap, neuter, and release is treatment to reduce feral cat populations without euthanasia. Adoptions to farms adds to the life-saving of feral cats. Proactive redemptions are one of the most overlooked opportunities. Increasing the number of lost animals returned to their families. Wider use of social media to post lost animals on the internet, and animal control officers are the key to pet reunification and have the ability to lead the reduction of shelter intake, consequently reducing the cost. That's a lot of that involves, when working out in the field to get the animal returned home before they're actually ever brought to the shelter. The final key to life-saving efforts are one that is significant because it's something that shows up in every single piece of research you will see. The final element, and most important of all, is the compassionate director. The director uses all the elements of a compassionate, comprehensive, life-saving plan, which are the mandatory services we just went through. The director holds staff accountable for results and high standards of customer service. They must be dedicated to principles of saving 90% of dogs and cats entering the shelter and seeing that they are well cared for in the process. The director should reject tired cliches such as too many animals, not enough homes, and they should seek out and assist rescue groups that are qualified and effective in creating adoption opportunities. When you start saving the lives of companion animals, word gets around fast. This is how adoptions open up, fosters open up, volunteers want to be part of what you're doing, and donations become available. When the public finds out that the adoption center, formerly the shelter, does not kill, it becomes a favorite destination. The Allegheny County, Maryland Animal Shelter, aptly called the Shelter of Hope, found this out when they implemented their life-saving system. There's an amusement park atmosphere at the shelter. Kids bring treats, they pet the cats, they walk the dogs. It's a festive, almost joyous atmosphere, and the adoptions have increased, bringing revenue, cutting costs, and saving lives. The same was reported in Reno, Nevada. Before their no-kill initiative, a community survey found most people rated the shelter as poor over a wide range of animal care issues. 2 years later, after launching their initiative, they did a public survey that found out that 93% of respondents supported the no-kill initiative. 95% gave the shelter positive ratings on adoption efforts and results. 93% said the shelter had a positive image, and 78% said the shelter had good customer service. Think about those numbers, look at them up on the board if you want to. If we did that survey in Russellville today, what do you think those numbers would be? The fundamental lesson from the communities with a 90% save rate is that the choices made by shelter directors determine whether animals live or die. In Washoe County, Nevada, Local shelters began a life-saving initiative that saw adoptions increase by 80% and deaths decrease by 51% in 1 year, despite taking in more than 15,000 dogs and cats. In Austin, Texas, they take in 23,000 animals a year and are saving 91%. There are no valid excuses why our community cannot do the same if we choose to. In closing, we would like to work with the council to develop an amendment to the city's animal control ordinance that provides for that no animal should be euthanized unless a veterinarian deems euthanizing a necessary to ensure the public health, safety, and welfare. An impounded animal that is sick or injured may be euthanized if no viable, humane alternative remains. I'd also like to mention that one of the country's leading no-kill advocates will be in Northwest Arkansas on August 23rd, screening a 1-hour film, followed by a 1-hour discussion of how to implement no-kill philosophy in your community. Those events, tickets to those events are $5, and No Kill Russellville will offer to pay not only that cost, but a gas stipend as well for any shelter employee or member of the council who would like to attend. And that's all I have today.
Thank you. There were a couple of people who that signed up to speak in regard to this item. Although, do those individuals want to speak at this time? Yes. Okay. Molly Corbin? You'll have 3 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Molly Corbin, and I have lived here.
Speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. My
That's
name
all
is
right.
Molly Corbin, and we've owned commercial property in Pope County for several years, and I own property in Yale County. I have a rescue. We are Arkansas Information Resources, and I have worked with Mike Vernon and the city shelter for several years, and they've always been professional. They've always worked with us on saving as many as we could. Humane euthanasia is a very gray area. Nobody wants to kill dogs. But the fact of the matter is that the city of Russellville does not have a mandatory spay-neuter law. You just about have to have that to have a no-kill. And anything that would help get to that situation would be awesome. I just don't know the capabilities exist right now for that to happen. Everybody needs to improve. You know, there's room for everything to get better. And I hope that we can someday get to a no-kill situation. But the reality is that when you have 2 dogs that are black, you have 2 adoptable dogs. But when you have 12, you've got 10 dogs that most likely will not find a home. And that's reality. When you have people that do not alter their animals, and you have a breeding pet population, it is very hard to maintain a no-kill situation. I mean, nobody wants to kill dogs, but it takes resources, and it takes taxpayer money. And everyone will say they want no-kill. I mean, like I said, that's obvious. But do they want to support a system that will allow for there to be a no-kill? And that's kind of your question. And we move dogs all the way across the nation. I mean, I work with several different breed and all-paws type rescues. And it does happen. You know, you can work and move dogs, but it takes an educated, willing staff. And I've found that in the Russellville shelter. And I appreciate them. And they've saved, last year we moved over 200 dogs into rescue. And several of them did come from this area. And like I said, through the vets, through a very good system, we were allowed to save them at no cost to the taxpayer. It can be done. And that's, like I said, I appreciate my shelter.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Corbin. Mr. Vernon, do you want to? Okay. All right. Council? Any comments?
I did just want to mention, and I appreciate Ms. Corbin's response, but I did want to make sure you don't forget that Needy Paws and Clarksville contracts with, they are the animal control, so they have, for Clarksville, they have to take in those dogs, and they do the same for Clarksville, for Lamar. They operate on a $200,000 budget, which is about $100,000 less than we do, and they still saved 86% of the dogs that, of the animals that came in, which is significantly higher than in Russellville.
Anything else?
Of course,
That,
you know, if I
Mr.
may,
Stuber, yes, go ahead.
you know, one of the problems in my mind that we have, we're the only city in Polk County that has an animal shelter. The county has none either. And, you know, there's a tremendous amount of dogs and cats from the county that makes their way to our shelter. Now, you know, I don't know the statistics of these cities you're touting as pretty well no kill. You know, I don't know if they have an influx from the county coming in, or if they only take animals from their city or their town. But, you know, I know where I live, there's constantly dogs coming up around there that are just dogs out running around. Well, we have cats all over the place, and you know, no one in the neighborhood seems to own those cats. There's a few cats that owns, the rest of them just, they're there. You know, quite frankly, I'd like to see them gone. And you know, that's one thing, you know, the city of Russellville provides a service to its residents. And you know, if I call Mike, or John Doe calls Mike, or calls the animal shelter and says, you know, there's a stray dog out here, or there's cats out here, you know, they have to respond. They can't say we're full. You know, it's, but you know, hey, I wish we could have an animal shelter that was no kill. I mean, I love animals, but you can't be overrun by them. Thank you, Mayor.
One
Thank you,
short
Mr.
comment,
Stewart.
Your Honor. And Garland touched on this, but one of the keys is going to be getting Polk County Court to pass an ordinance controlling animals somehow or another, and so far they haven't addressed it. We'll have to have the cooperation of Polk County. And you know, that may be a difficult hill to climb, because we do have the only facility in the county, and that includes, you know, London, Atkins, Pottsville, Dover, Hector, which is the lion's share of the population in Polk County. So Polk County Court will have to come on board to some degree. Otherwise, we're alone. So,
Anybody else?
I'll just make one quick statement. I was going through and listening to the presentation and looking through the documents provided. You know, it seems like it's almost a chicken and egg kind of deal. You pass the ordinance, and then they will come. And I guess I would challenge you that you come first. You know, put these processes in place, get these volunteers, and get these things going, and then come and say, you know, we've got a process in place where we've shown that we can make this work, and then let's talk about it, because it's kind of a big leap, I guess, for the city to say, You know, if we pass this ordinance, then all this stuff is gonna come into play, and it's not gonna be an issue. So that's just a little bit of a concern I have.
Thank you. Any other,
I'm gonna say one more thing, then I'm gonna shut up about this. But, you know, I may misunderstood what's been said, but it's kind of like someone is maybe suggesting that the employees of the animal shelter is, is not doing right, okay?
I'm glad you picked up on that, Mr. Stuber.
And quite frankly, I'm liaison to the animal shelter, and in the course of my time, I visit that place frequently, and I do not think, I know, there's not one employee over there that enjoys euthanating animals. Thank you.
I think that was well said. Anything else to come before this group? No, that's the end of the discussion. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.